What are some of the differences and similarities between the two? You would mark that both are characterized by rich rituals and secrets. The one on the left has the propaganda department, and the one on the right has the Catholic Church, has a lot of evangelicals. There's a big difference between them. The Vatican doesn't have search engines, but the Party does. In fact, 3 of them. Jike is the first one we want to talk about. And the second one actually is also in the works. It's a collaboration between Xinhua News Agency and China Mobile. It's supposed to be installed, pre-installed on the cell phones sold in China by China Mobile. And the last one, of course, no other than CCTV. And so we chose the first one because it's the one first built and also the most successful one. For this presentation, I will talk about background, provide some information about how propaganda has been granted differently as it relates to national identity, how funding has been done through a political economy analysis of propaganda, and the last one, I'll hand it over to Kristen to talk about Panopticon. Well, the overall conclusion that we want to draw is that we believe the party is thinking about propaganda and thought work really in new ways. And they've reconceptualized what it is and is carrying out in very different places, and strikingly through a search engine. And also the second point we want to make is that it marks a really turning point in some ways that the government is trying to further nationalize the internet through more coercive ways and also attractive ways. Information about the two, actually the one on the top is GoSo, meaning Go Search. This is the beta version, test version. And the one on the bottom is the version that's currently in use. As of yesterday, I did a search in Alexa and found that Jike now ranks about 650 in China and ranks this much in globally. But out of 2.3 million websites, well, it's not too bad, given it has only been in works for about 2 years. And Jike not only functions as a standard general website, general search engine, but also has been integrated into people's people's daily online, which is the official propaganda mouthpiece. Okay? And this is a ceremony in 2010 when GoSo was launched, and also on the same occasion, you will note if you read Chinese there, that people's daily online has been incorporated, meaning it's turning into a propaganda incorporated company, right? And it's really important because they realize that 80% of Chinese internet users actually use search engines very frequently, and it's the #1 Chinese online search tool, right? And I won't repeat this sort of events, but you can tell that the web has been more politicized and nationalized. And of course, national identity has always been important. For the longest time, we thought we had the internet and national boundaries would disappear. It turns out, on the other hand, we have something of a resurgence of nationalism, and it turns out that throughout history, nationalism has also always trying to be created and maintained through the highest possible form of media, and not only through printing press, through TV, through internet, but also recently through national search engine. And we also believe that this process takes more than just discursive construction of this process, but also it's constructed through science, constructed through design as well. If you compare the two, the one on the top is remarkably very Chinese. Dragon, the calligraphy, the seal. The one on the bottom is remarkably, on the other hand, very abstract, but also sort of postmodern. I think the reason behind that is because actually 60% of Chinese users, internet users, are under the age of 30. It's really important to appeal to what they might like. And second of all, I think it's also important to recognize how Deng Yaping, the CEO of Jike, has also been deployed or used as a sign itself. She is a household name in China, the winner of 4 Olympic gold medals and 14 World Championship titles. So this is somebody who represents national pride, but also she has gone on to Cambridge to get her PhD came back to China, right, and to become Jike CEO. So this represents, in a way, for the party to very smartly deploy the tools available to them, including Deng Yaping. Deng Yaping has, on many occasions, talked about this search team that she has, which has around 170 people, as the national team, because she's a spokesperson, but also because this is the competition they saw between Baidu and Google. The political economy of Jike is also important if we also wanted to delve in more into what Jike really means. I'll talk about ownership control, market regulation, and so on. The funding of Jike is very interesting. It's not a whole lot of money if you look at it, but 81% comes from People's Daily, actually the hard copy newspaper company, and 19% is People's Daily Online, which is a subsidiary of People's Daily, right? So it tells you the genes of this company is very, very party state. And People's Daily Online also last month has been listed, going public, raised more money, now it's worth more than New York Times, okay? And also, what it tells you is who owns People's Daily Online. It's very interesting that the party has decided we're gonna let the market subsidize our propaganda work, invest in your own ideological development and growth, okay? If you're interested, please read this document that actually explains the prospectus and what it is about, okay? And so it's really important that we remember propaganda is for sale and it's not free, right? And where we can make good money out of this. I'll hand it over to Kristen.
So we employed the use of the theoretical framework of the Panopticon. It was first conceived of by Jeremy Bentham to describe the actual physical prison structure, in which there was a central tower in the middle of a prison, and the prisoners were surrounded by the tower in a circular form. So the guards essentially could see what was going on. They could view the prisoners, but the prisoners could not view the guards. So in a sense, it led to self-monitoring of prisoners, so they acted as if they were constantly being monitored because they didn't know when and where they were being watched. Foucault then took this idea and brought it into postmodernity to describe the way that power operates within institutions, such as educational institutions, hospitals, etc. So within China, the Panopticon's been used to study the use of power within China through different structures, such as the Great Firewall, net nannies, internet police, things like that. So how does this apply to Jike specifically? This shows your typical search query. So at the top is the search for cars, and you can see information that's collected through this query, such as IP address, the particular browser that the user was using, as well as the time that the search was conducted. So this is the code that's written for that, so you can see how this data is collected. So as far as Jike, this leads to not only surveillance of individuals, but also a type of self-censorship of corporations. So companies begin to censor their own content. And for example, with ICPs, they're required to store information for up to 60 days and turn over information that's collected to the government upon request. And also, Jike allows the state to centralize surveillance versus outsourcing it to other commercial entities such as Baidu. And the last point that I'll end with, we recognize that the Panopticon is kind of an imperfect way to, or it might not completely identify or describe the ways in which Jike operates. It's an imperfect form of power.
Thank you very much. And I have a few slides to act very quickly, a conclusion. A few things. I think if we're looking at really complex structures, we need to look at them through different ways. So perhaps this is one way to think about how they can be looked at differently. Of course, there are limitations to future research. We're not looking at users and how they are perceiving and using them, but we're focusing on policies. And in particular, I think there are a few implications. I think government regulation has been one thing, but it's now moving into manufacturing and deploying what they're creating. Propaganda has been high-tech, scientific, and user-friendly, as well as, I might as well add, market-friendly as well. It's acting on principles of not coercion per se, but attraction. Let the market subsidize the propaganda word. The search market is so big, of course they want to cut, but at the same time, you have a regulator who's also a player in the same market. Surveillance itself, not only being able to gather the data, but also they're using the data they collect to sell it, right, for money. And this marked, in some ways, a not open internet or a generative internet anymore, but moving towards more closed, not totally closed, and then degenerative web in the future. And I think it's a worrisome trend. Thank you.